I reclocked the alternator, so we're gonna actually put it back in here, and it's one of the many things I gotta do on here. You can see I also gotta replace the valve covers. They got all this, like, I don't know, all this surface rust on them just from, fortunately it's not in a garage, so there's a lot of humidity down here. So I gotta replace those two. There's a long list of small things, but in order to get it running again, we gotta put that alternator back in. So I went from 63, the AutoZone alternator that I replaced it with was a 63 amp, and I realized that, well, you can see it's got some wires right there for a sound system and whatnot. It was pulling, I don't know how many amps it's pulling, but I looked through my old build sheet and it was at least 100 amp alternator. So I went and bought a 140 amp alternator from Summit, made sure all the gauge wires were correct and stuff like that for connecting it up, because if you have too small of a wire gauge going to the alternator and it's pulling too many amps, that could heat up the wires and burn them up. So made sure those were good. In theory, you can really have as long as you have the proper wiring, as high as an amp alternator as you want. It's only going to give you what the car is requesting of it. So I just went up to 140. So all right, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in. We're gonna double check that the clocking is correct on here. All right, so I don't know how well you could see. Maybe angle this down a little bit. All right. So this is how this guy's got to sit in here. If you guys can't see, I'll readjust it and show you shortly. Okay. All right. Perfect. So see how it sits here now with this mounting bolt here, this guy up here, and then there's I don't know if you can see, but there's another mounting bolt on the back. Before, this was completely wrong. This was like up here, you know, this wasn't lining up with here. That was the whole issue of why I had to reclock it. But now looking at it, I realize it is good to go. The only thing I think I'm gonna have to do actually here is change the point of this grounding strap right here. It's up here. I could probably move it to down here and install that. And I think actually, I don't know if you can see, but this grounding point right here is all smashed and messed up. So I actually may also change this guy right here, so it'll be smaller and fit this. So I'm gonna have to go look for one of those really quick, and then I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. The battery died the last time, so I had to wait, go charge the GoPro, come back. Now we're gonna go back to where we were, reinstalling the alternator. I think one thing that I did while not on the film was, I think I said I was gonna do it, but rewired a new grounding terminal at the end there to go onto the alternator, because right here, I don't know if you guys can see, right here we got a grounding post for it, so had to make sure that was in order. All right, so like I said before, let me see if I could turn it down a little bit so you guys can see it. We're gonna mock this up here. I still have, actually at this point here, I know that it fits, so I'm gonna pull this this little tab out of here, so that way we can engage those brushes we installed much earlier on everything. Let's see here, see if I can grab that guy, pull it out, boom, nice. That's it. Let's double check it turns. Yep, everything turns. It's not binding up on anything. It's a big thing, you'll know if something's messed up in there because it'll bind, but nope, spins freely. Cool. Oh, another actually issue that I ran into on this is I ended up having to grind this this bracket down here. If you have a Pontiac 400 like this and you have an alternator set up where it's on this side, some people have like a relocation kit, or I don't know if it's actually a relocation kit or it's stock on the other side. I'm not sure. I know that this one, because I've seen pictures of it over there on the other side of the motor. This one has a kit to have it over here, and if you have it over here, some of the alternators, the fins for it, the cooling fins, actually hit this bracket here. Before, when I had the other old alternator on here that didn't have this kind of, you can see, enclosed fin style like this, it was hitting right here. So, you know, nothing the good old angle grinder can't fix, but that is something I ran into, and something to be aware of if you ever have a similar setup like this. But yeah, okay, cool. Let's get this put in here. What I always find cool about this, for some reason, is it has a perfect size bolt holes to just kind of drop in bolts here. Here's all the bolts for the alternator. It's obviously not made for that, but it works. Also, it goes without mentioning, make sure you have your battery disconnected when you do this stuff. Trust me, I've done it before where I was like, oh, whatever, I don't need to make sure it's off. I just won't hit anything, and I definitely hit it. I definitely hit stuff, and it made huge sparks, and it's not fun. It's funny, but not fun. All right. Hopefully the wind noise isn't too bad for you guys. There's kind of a storm rolling in, so I'm hoping I can get this all in and good to go before that happens. So you can hear it coming though. Right, we got that side in. Gonna come up here. Actually, first let's wrap the alternator belt around here. Make sure it's hooked up properly. Come on. There we go. Oop. So something I actually ran into with this alternator style setup before is that it was squealing all the time because I couldn't get the tension right. I'll show you guys in a moment here once I get this kind of all started, the drawback of having a kit like this. So there's a kit that, instead of just bolting it in to these, like, I don't know if you can see these like slots that are right here. I don't know if you can see on the GoPro, but these slots that are right here, it has a like almost like a tie rod style setup where you just, you know, mount the tie rod to this end of the alternator, and it you know, you can turn the tie rod to effectively adjust your tension, which is a million times better than this way, because you actually have a lot more control over the tension. I'm going to show you the super interesting, I'll leave it at that way, that you gotta adjust tension with this kind of setup. Before, like I was saying, it's really interesting. That's not a Summit Racing plug. I wish it was. Summit Racing, sponsor me. Okay, so pretty much, get this moved up here. Who knows? There is probably a better way to do this, to be honest with you. But the only way I could come up with is to put something in here. So I got this rubber mallet in here, wedged underneath the alternator, and you know what? Let me pull off the air cleaner. Give me a little bit more room to work. Hang on. All right, let's move that guy away real quick. Okay, is to push kind of use this as to get leverage and just push down to push this alternator up and get as much tension as I can right there. It's really not the best setup, but while I have this guy right here, this setup, that's just what I gotta deal with. So move this hose out of the way. There we go. And just kind of at the same time, I'm just putting as much pressure down as I can. Helps if you got a second person to you know, apply a pressure while you tighten, but it's just me right now, so I do not. In fact, you know what, let me use a extension that might help. The big thing is pretty much once you get one of these tightened down and in there, it'll hold it in place. Last step here is just to install this little screw right here on that grounding terminal we talked about. So something that's kind of interesting is a lot of alternators are grounded or can be grounded just through the mount that they're put on, especially if the mount like this one is, well, you can't see on this side, but or the bracket right here is to the engine block, which these half aren't, but the other half down at the bottom is. But the thing is this has paint on it, and it's just not really a great conductive surface with paint on it. So it doesn't hurt to always add an extra grounding step or grounding strap. So got that guy on there, screw that down, tighten it down, and then we'll be ready to give her a jump and see what's up. Make sure nothing's loose before you start anything. Put this battery back on right here. All right. Oh, one last thing that is extremely important that I almost forgot to do. Install the actual power wire to the alternator. Don't forget that before you hook up the battery. So it's literally just a post right here that I screwed in. You can see it's a nut. Put it on the terminal, screw it down. Same thing, I'm gonna get the proper size right there to tighten that down a little bit, but it's snug right now and it's good enough to test to see if this alternator is working. Hook this guy up to the old Mighty Jeep Patriot. There we go. Okay, it's gonna give it a few minutes to charge, and then we're gonna see if we solved the problem here. Oh no! No, it doesn't got enough battery to start on its own. All right, so what I gotta do is just leave it hooked up and let it run and charge up that battery. So we got her started now under her own power. You guys probably can't see the gauge, but we're reading good. We're reading actually really good. We're right at 13.8 volts or so, which is exactly what this car usually runs at. Also too, something weird that I noticed when my battery was dying, I lost my tach. Or I'm sorry, yeah, when my alternator wasn't charging, my battery was dying. I lost my tach. I also obviously got the symptoms of, you know, the battery not charging and all of the gauges dimming and whatnot. So the really interesting thing, I guess, that I was surprised about was the tach going dead. But we got our tach back now, so it's definitely charging, because before, when it wasn't, we were at, you know, 12 volts right off the bat, and it was dipping and dipping lower and lower. And luckily we made it through the whole, we made it to the show, made it to the meet, hung out, and it didn't happen until on the way back. And luckily it lasted us right until we pulled in the driveway, and then it shut off when I was in the driveway. So but we look good. It's sounding good. It's sounding healthy. Sounds real good. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.